Hello and welcome back to Pop Culture Postmortem, where you're not crazy and the Emperor is indeed naked. Today we are going to look at the pile of just regular butt cheeks that is the movie House of 1000 Corpses by Bob Zombie. This movie is an absolute train wreck and barely anything works in it. If you can't tell, not a fan to begin with. We're going to go through it scene by scene and explain why it is a pile of crap, and we will do so in a very surgical way. And with me to do such a thing is my friend, your brother, everyone loves him, Maurice.
Oh, wow. What did you say about butt cheeks? What was that?
Pile of butt cheeks.
Pile of butt cheeks?
A giant pile of cheeks, man.
That's really good. Well, Michael, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Kay, welcome. It's a pleasure not to see you again, I suppose. I don't mean that in that way, but I've never seen you, but I know you see us. I had a rip-roaring good time. We watched this one together like 2 weeks ago. It was so much fun. That's the only way to watch this film is with your best bud who equally hates Robert Zombie as much as you do. So I guess I'm supposed to do production. I typed up I tried to keep it to one page. I really did. And just taking out the pertinent stuff. And I'm only treating Robert Zombie as a director. I'm not going to address his musical career because I can't. I can handle bad music or I can handle bad movies. I could not do the two together. That's just too much. It's information overload. Okay,
so you get both of this movie.
That's true. That is true. Yes, Robert Zombie, member of White Zombie, and then later his own solo act. And that's all we need to know about that. The genesis of House of 1000 Corpses, which is the appropriate pronunciation of the title of this film. Genesis was in 1999. Zombie conceived this film while designing a haunted house attraction at Universal Studios Hollywood. And I'm sorry, audience, I have several direct quotations from Robert Zombie. He says, "I was in the office of the head of production or something." And he asked me, this is verbatim, I'm not like riffing on this. And he asked me if I had any movie ideas, and I pitched him Corpses, which was very rough at the time because I wasn't ready, and I made it up on the spot. This is directly from the mouth of the director of this film. He liked it. I went home, wrote a 12-page treatment, and met up with them. 2 months later, we were shooting, end quote. So that's the genesis of this film. Production of the film began May 2000, finished by Halloween. Film's starting budget was $3 to $4 million, but Zombie later described the budget between $7 and $14 million. Another quote from the man himself: "I knew the ending sucked, so I let it suck. And they said, the movie's great, but the ending sucks. And I know. So they gave me more money, and we shot a more elaborate ending. Bigger sets, the whole razzmatazz." Please.
I like how he thinks the rest of the movie's good, but the ending is the only thing that needed to be reworked.
What do you think the original ending was?
Just him whacking off all over the place.
Do you think that was it? It was just
in his basement.
Yeah, I guess I would like to see the original rough cut of this film. I don't know if I would want to see that. Okay, so now he's got razzmatazz. I just can't imagine, like, when I picture Robert Zombie, you know, in the Target in Bloomington, Illinois, and he's very short. I just can't imagine the word razzmatazz coming out of that man's dirty face. Anyway, okay. The film was shot at a 25 days shooting schedule. 2 weeks were spent filming on the University Studios Hollywood backlots. I don't have this written down, but I know part of the story is that they shot it. The house is the same house that's in the best little whorehouse in Texas, and it's on the tram tour at Universal Studios. And so they'd be filming, and their takes would get ruined because of the tram tour gone by. Which I just think is it's really funny.
That's what ruined the shots of this movie.
Yeah, that's what made it bad. Oh man, I wish I was too young, but I would have been 14, but I wish I had been on a tram tour at Universal. I've been on that tram tour, and I wish I saw Rob Zombie, and I would have been like, hey, fuck you, Zombie. And he'd have to be like, cut.
Can you, like, just in the background, you just hear, you suck, Zombie.
Right. Got your Dracula right here, Rob. Okay, anyway, remaining 11 days of the shoot were spent on a ranch in Valencia, California. Cutaway scenes were filmed in Zombie's basement after initial filming for the project had concluded. A lot of the props were like shit he'd picked up at yard sales, I have to assume. Zombie often filmed 2 versions of scenes, one of them less gory to please Universal. Universal hoped the film would focus more on the group of kids, but Zombie knew, quote, nobody gives a shit about the kids, end quote. And that the viewers were meant to, quote, root for, end quote, the Firefly family. What did we came up with a word for that? Was it the Framley? What did we call them?
It was the Framley.
The Framley. As opposed to the group of teens, though he claims it wasn't intentional. So he says, quote, yeah, I wanted the audience to cheer him. I didn't consciously think of it at the time because I was trying to make Bill and Jerry likable, but it's like when he saw Beetlejuice and you could tell all Tim Burton cared about was Beetlejuice, end quote.
So he both at the same time decided and didn't decide consciously and subconsciously that you're supposed to root for the Framley while he's trying to make the 2 protagonists, heavy air quotes on protagonists, likable. Now, keep in mind, when we talk about this, and we talk about these 2 douche nozzles, they're supposed to be Rob Zombie's version of likable human beings.
Yeah, I know their names are Bill and Jerry. I'm calling them Tom and Jerry from here on out, and they're interchangeable. I don't know which is which. I still don't. And I don't care. I don't care. It's Tom and Jerry. I think that's going to be my approach, is the choices Rob Zombie should have made in this film. And I think my ideas are far better than his work. But yeah, so Rob Zombie's the king of basically saying, like, well, I didn't do it on purpose unless you liked it, and then I did it on purpose. It's like the guy who says, oh, I'm just kidding, unless you like that, unless you want me to be serious. It's like, pick a lane, you know, just coward. Okay, I'm halfway through this. So more of this shit. Zombie claimed the film was not intentionally meant to feature elements of black humor, saying it, quote, turned out a little wackier and campier than I originally intended, but as we were shooting, that's the tone that it was turning out to be. Movies sometimes dictate their own course, so I just sort of went with it. Says a man who's never directed a film his entire life. It was thrust into the role. Okay. Prior to agreeing to release the film through Universal, Zombie reportedly told the studio of the film's nature, stating, quote, I was really blatant when I talked to them. I didn't want to get into a situation where they thought I was making something mainstream, and I told them that I wanted to make a drive-in movie, something very gritty and nasty and weird. Universal shelved the film, fearing that it would receive an NC-17 rating. Zombie reacquired the rights and later made a deal with MGM to release the film, but MGM refused to release the film following a controversial remark from Zombie claiming that the company MGM had no morals for releasing said film. So shot himself in the foot on that one.
He's such a clown.
Yeah. Zombie later announced plans to release the film independently, but eventually caught the eye of Lionsgate Entertainment, who released the film in April 2003. Now, mind you, filming wrapped in Halloween of 2000, so it's now been, a couple years. Lionsgate, attempting to venture into new types of films, hoped releasing a horror film would provide more opportunities. The film was cut and edited I know it says here in an attempt to achieve an R rating, but in my head it's like an attempt to make it watchable. Just, despite receiving an unfavorable response from critics, it went on to gross $60 million worldwide. According to Zombie Lionsgate Entertainment, made back their investment on the film on the first day. Well, they didn't invest very much into the film because Universal was shelling out on the anyway. And shortly afterwards, approached Zombie about a sequel to the film. Having already begun developing ideas for his sequels, Zombie quickly began work on a follow-up. Okay, now this is the lasting legacy of this film. From Zombie himself. Zombie has acknowledged the film's cult status, stating, quote, "Now, a decade later, it's become a pretty loved movie among people. It's great that we have this big celebration. I love seeing Sid Haig and the other actors get such great attention from it. The funny thing is, 10 years becomes a long time. I'll meet someone who's 18 years old, and that's always been a film that they've loved. It's funny that the film's been around that long to be like that for some people." End quote. But Zombie has also gone on to dismiss the film following its release, saying, quote, "The first film I directed, which people," I don't know if this is it's not a typo, but I don't know if this is the verbatim, I don't know if this is a sick moment or not, "which people seems to love," but I could see him saying "seems to love."
Razzmatazz
just seems to love it. So, "which people seems to love is just a calamitous mess. Well, when it came out, it seemed like everyone hated it. Now everyone acts like it's beloved in some way. All I see is flaw upon flaw upon flaw upon flaw." End quote. Please.
Well, Robert and you and I apparently share the same opinion. All we see is flaw upon flaw upon flaw, and it's a calamitous mess. Who's pretending like this is a good movie or it's beloved? This thing's a pile of horse shit.
Well, it's dumbass 18-year-old Rob Zombie fans who walk up to Rob Zombie, after his set at Lollapalooza. Really loved House Corpses, Rob. And he's like, "Yeah, thank you."
Oh, well, thank you. I do appreciate that.
Nice of you. Did you like seeing my wife's tits? Oh yeah, Rob's, you're awesome. I jerk off to him every day. Yeah, me too.
This fucking, I hate Rob Zombie so much. Oh my god. Actually, that was awesome, man. Thank you very much. And next we will start looking at why exactly this film is such a pile of crap and a calamitous mess that is flaw upon flaw upon flaw. So our calamitous mess pile of dog shit opens up with a nice Dr. Wolfenstein slam cuts all over the place into a Captain Spaulding commercial. Captain Spaulding is going to be kind of pivotal in this film. He plays a crucial role. Get used to him. We then see that our movie takes place in October 30th of 1977, one day before Halloween. We get some immediate free boobs, so Rob Zombie knows exactly who his audience is, teenage kids who don't have the internet yet. So we open up in a gas station. Gas station / sideshow with Captain Spaulding, played by Sid Haig, who, credit where it's due, Sid Haig is a good actor. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. Sid Haig is a good actor. But here's what Robert has him doing. He's talking to someone who looks like they might be a little backwards completely. But that's intentional. So, okay. Then we get to hear their exchange of racy jokes and use of edgy words like, it's in the movie, I'm quoting the movie, leave me alone. It's a very Halloween-esque shot film in the way that Halloween-esque, not the holiday, the Carpenter film. It's shot in a very similar way where they kind of do a pan into the gas station from a third-party perspective. And we see what happens is two robbers bust in the door, and they're going to get the money and hate clowns, I guess. I don't know. Captain Spaulding tells them in no uncertain terms to go fuck themselves and tells them to take some fried chicken with them. They spar verbal jabs. Captain Spaulding growls at the robber because he says he hates clowns, which is very, very scary. Some dude in a giant head and a hammer breaks through the front door 3 times. I mind you, 3 times. Booker T would be proud. 3 times, 3 times, 3 times hit in the face with a hammer. They use this distraction to shoot the other robber. And the scene ends with Sid Haig standing over what is presumably a lifeless body with his gun he has pulled and says, "And fuck you, blammo." Scene ends. What'd you think of that scene, Morris?
There's so much. This is like Act 1, right? Pretty much. Well, I guess the kids show up later, so that's. But anyway. It has the best line in the entire film, which is "I hate clowns and I don't like chicken." That is the best line in the entire film. It audibly made me laugh.
I believe 50% of that man's statement.
Yeah, and how upset. Sid Haig is a very good actor. This is true. I feel for that guy. I think he had it rough. Interesting curio. Quentin Tarantino, I think, either offered or considered to offer the role of Marcellus Wallace. Is it Wallace in Pulp Fiction? Which eventually went to, was it Ving Rhames?
Yeah, Ving Rhames got that role.
Yeah. So imagine Sid Haig as Uma Thurman's husband. That's so weird. But yeah, he's a very good actor. He's talking to the guy. What do we determine? That's the guy who freezes to death with the pocket watch in Scrooged.
Yes. Yes.
And they're being edgy, and the robbers busted. Yeah, they do their little trash talk. I like the smash cut. That was a good terminology. Yeah, and I remember when the guy. So this is what I was thinking about. Okay. When the guy busts in. And I remember I had to ask you, Harris, was like, did this just like skip or repeat? Like, what just happened? And yeah. We had to go and play it back. And like, no, it was an intentional like 3-cut repeat. I don't know why. I really don't know why. And the guy's wearing this big ass hat, and I think I made you pause it and be like, why is he wearing that? And you were telling me, well, that's the figure, the statue that was standing outside of the gas station. Like, so that guy must have been just standing there. We don't know for how long. This is on a Sunday, by the way. We looked it up. The Sunday night, this dude is just hanging out outside in a costume, for reasons. But I don't think there's any indication that. So this is why I think the scene doesn't work. Is that surprise is just, it's nonsensical. There was no indication that statue was significant. I don't believe there's any sort of pan in on it. I think it's part of the scenery. There's no indication there's a person in there. Like, we don't get to see any sort of movement or anything like that. So it's false suspense. It's just like Rob Zombie knows there's a guy in there, but nobody else does. And so we should be aware, like, we as the audience should be aware of everything going on in the world to have the information available to understand what's going on. Because if you don't do that, if you don't do a pan in on a human hand in the suit moving or something, or the thing like moving its head, then when the guy busts in with a giant thing on his head, you're just like, what the fuck is this? What is this? Because
the fact that our movie opens up with several "what the fuck just happened" moments. It's been like 5 minutes of film at this point.
Right. And if you're in the theater, you can't back it up. I'm sure there's people in the theater who did the same thing that I did, where they turned to the person like, "What the fuck's the head about?" It's like, "Well, I think that was outside." It's like, "Oh, but so why?" It's like, I don't know. I'm 18. What do you want from me? I'm trying to jerk off here. But what I thought would work better. So I'm thinking about the moves that should have been made. First off, it shouldn't be Bill and Jerry. It should be Tom and Jerry. I believe that. The second move, he shouldn't have busted with the head on. He should have busted dressed like a fucking like gas tank, like a gas pump. And if I saw that, I would have been like, "Holy shit, that's awesome!" Or like a giant piece of fried chicken or something. Like,
Like he's wearing like a car suit.
yeah, or he's like one of the inflatable like flappy arm guys. That I would have gotten behind any of those choices, but the thing with the head, I just no.
Oh my god. Your idea is immensely more entertaining than what actually happened. Okay, so here is the problem with this scene. Okay, we have Captain Spaulding, right? Who is, from what we can tell, he's a friendly guy to the guy he's talking to, just a regular old customer. He's friendly with them. He's having a nice conversation. They're jovial. He's not an angry guy, right? He looks like, from the commercial, he's a legitimate businessman who is trying to run his business. We see two dudes break in and try to rob him, and he stands up for himself. And he tells them to fuck right off, right? So, Captain Spaulding deals with the two guys who are trying to commit a crime against him. Captain Spaulding is a hero. And this is where it starts to get really, you can tell this is going to fall apart fast. Captain Spaulding, by the way, this is in Texas, right? He would be a local hero. Man defends himself, slays two would-be robbers, protects innocent bystander. The man's a hero. Like, he's someone that we root for now because not only was he refusing to give in to fear and demands from two criminals, but he takes care of them. And in the world of movies, this is our protagonist, who we believe is to be our champion. Now, this is going to fall apart very, very, very quick. But here's something else about the scene. He kills this guy with no qualms the moment he has his back turned to him. He gets blood all over him, doesn't affect him. He sniffs the barrel of the gun after shooting the guy, and then puts another round in his head to say, just to make sure it's done right. This is a man that's very used to killing people. Again, this is going to come up later, which is going to spoil something that's going to happen at the end. We are supposed to be rooting for this guy. Everything about him so far is likable. So keep that in mind. And this is why this scene doesn't work, because it fails so hard to set up the rest of the movie. This is the intro, first 5 minutes. It has already failed spectacularly.
I hadn't thought about that. That scene was rooting for Captain Spaulding, even though I really like the line that the robber had about fried chicken and clowns. Yeah, so he is, even though he's a little bit offbeat, we're kind of firmly on his side. But it seemed like a non sequitur. Like clearly this is just a cool scene that Rob Zombie had in his head, and he had no idea what to do with it. Because you're right. I mean, until the end, Captain Spaulding really is not a functional player in the main events of the plot. Like, the kids show up and he guides them to the House of 1,000 Corpses, which I still think it's a misnomer. I think it's this tunnel underneath house full of corpses, not exactly 1,000. But I mean, I guess we could count. I don't know. I don't think there's that many, but maybe once we get to the bone chandeliers, maybe. So if each one of those bones came from a different corpse, but that seems like a technicality to me. So and who is even using that? I didn't hear a single person say, and as you know, here we are in the house of 1,000 corpses. You know, where is that come from? I don't understand what it's even a reference to. Anyway. So yeah, it just seems like a non sequitur. I mean, it has so much energy behind it. The scene does. There's a likable character, and then you're right. That's not the rest of the movie. It's so disjointed that then these random kids show up, and then they go to a different place, and then it tries to loop back on itself, but it doesn't. Yeah, the Captain Spaulding at the end of the film, I don't think is the same Captain Spaulding at the beginning of the film. I guess. I don't know.
The fact that there's
Am I making
confusion.
any sense?
Yeah, the fact that there's confusion at all in our first 5 minutes just tells you what exactly you're in for here. Our next scene of a disjointed mess that is this film shows us Tom and Jerry are now driving at night, looking for different roadside attractions, it turns out. It's at this point that Tom and or Jerry says, and I quote about, "The mansion chicks were hot." This is 1977. That was 10 goddamn years ago at this point. And this is what Robert Zombie is saying to the audience. No, these are likable people. These are just like me, guys. And it's like, goddamn Carney. So we're going to continue driving until they see Captain Spaulding's is coming up, and they're going to stop at Captain Spaulding's and ask some questions. This is the point that we both got incredibly distracted talking about pipes because we knew what was coming up, and my God, we did not want to watch the rest of this movie again. So, Morris, what are your thoughts about the car scene?
So Tom and Jerry, I still don't know which is which. One is Dwight Schrute from The Office. I never really watched The Office. I know that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was telling you, Harris, that Chris Hardwick, who's the other, what did you say, douche nozzle?
Yeah, he's a douche nozzle.
Beardy one, the non-glassed beardy one, Mac Murphy. He's Chris Hardwick. I remember him from Singled Out, which was like a dating competition show on MTV, and he was the main host, and his co-host was originally Jenny McCarthy, where that's like kind of how she got her start of being, the obnoxious hot chick. Like, so she was a Playboy bunny, but she pick her nose and shit, and that was supposed to be funny. was an physically attractive person doing disgusting things. I mean, it must still be I don't know, but then she quit to become an anti-vaxxer, and Carmen Electra took over as the second co-host, who was a Prince protege, and I think it was on a Baywatch or something. But and I think she married Dennis Rodman for like 2 hours once. Yeah, so there's those two guys who. They're writing a book. One of them's writing a book. They're both writing the book. All four people are writing the book?
I got the impression that one of them is writing the book, the other is taking credit for writing the book, and the two girls that would never date these two douche nozzles are just there?
Yeah. Whose names I still do not know, and at this point I refuse to learn them.
Tomette and Jerry.
Sure. And they're not even. You don't even know they're even in the car. I mean, they must be slumped behind the front seats. because you don't even know they're in there until they arrive at the gas station. I think Rob Zombie didn't have the full cast in mind yet. I think he was like, well, I got these two. Should there be like girls in the back seat? I don't want this to be a homo situation. No homo. They gotta be straight. Or something. I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, and then the one girl's having nightmares, which I determined she's actually dreaming about the music video for Loser by Beck. Which makes perfect sense. Already, I know this is supposed to be like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It makes me think more of Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, I just think it's that. And I think Rob Zombie, again, I noticed this in his Halloweens, he forgets the source material. Like, he forgets what movie he's actually ripping off at any given moment. Because, Sherry Moon's like, hey, this is like the Frankenfurter scene. He's like, no, that was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like, no, sweetie, this is Rocky Horror. Like, I know we watched them back to back, but you're confusing the films.
I love how much credit you attempt to give to Sherry Moon. Well, I'm just having none of it. Just no.
No, if we ever produce merch, the first thing I want to produce is Save Sherry Moon shirts. Like, I want Save Sherry Moon. I know she does not want to be in any of her awful husband's terrible fucking movies. I know who in their right mind? I was thinking about this. I told Jen, who's my spouse, by the way. If I was like, Jen, what would really turn me on is if I could film your naked breasts and show it to an international viewership. Jen is gonna say immediately, I need you to move out. That's what she's gonna say. But Sherry Moon must love Rob so much that he's like, hey, baby, I'm going to film your boobs and have a bunch of 18-year-old kids look at him. And she's like, oh, Rob, I'm not really... And he's going to be like, woman, you're going to do it if you love me. And she's like, I'm sorry. Don't make me go back into the basement. I'm not trying to make, spurious accusations of spousal abuse, but I think this counts.
Allegedly.
I think everyone in this film needs to file a lawsuit against Rob Zombie for grievous mental harm.
Severe damage to career.
I think I might start a class action lawsuit just having had to watch this.
Okay, well, we're gonna get to Cheryl Moon here in a second, but yeah, I just love how you and I are like, I'm completely no, fuck her, and you're like, but save her. Okay, so Douche Patrol gets to Captain Spaulding's, right? They walk in, and Captain Spaulding is in a t-shirt at this point, with his some of his makeup kind of taken off. But he's mopping, and the mop bucket is full of bloody water, and he's just kind of doing his thing, and he's talking to him at this point. Just being back to Captain Spaulding. So now in the same place, we have two guys that I don't know how anyone would ever deem likable. In the same location as the guy that is clearly the guy we're supposed to like at this point, right? Maybe. Oh no. But remember when I said that this is going to fall apart real quick, and it's going to demonstrate how Robert has zero concept on how to tell a story or continuity or how to do characters. So they're talking. Tom and/or Jerry is talking to Captain Spaulding, and he's got his notebook out, and he's asking a bunch of questions. And Captain Spaulding asks him, why are you asking so many questions? And he's like, I'm writing a book, and, so is Tom and/or Jerry behind me. And he's like, over there, like, diddling something. I don't fucking know. Who cares? Captain Spaulding starts getting upset and starts raising his voice at Tom and/or Jerry, and the music starts to swell, right? Okay, here's where this is the problem. Tom and/or Jerry starts getting scared, but as the audience, we're rooting for Captain Spaulding, aren't we? Because this is completely out of sync with the character we saw before. We saw him kill a person, sure, but he was defending himself. It was with the context of that scene. And this one, he's just trying to be menacing because someone's asking him questions, which does not line up with what we saw earlier. So, okay, what are we trying to establish here, Robert? What the hell is going on? You've made a confusing scene as soon as you've finished another confusing ass scene. And so then Captain Spaulding laughs and says, gotcha. It's like, you never had us. We were rooting for you. Screw Tom and or Jerry. We're rooting for you, dude. But no. That's not how this works. That's not how the world of Robert Zombie works. It's got to be a confusing goddamn mess, and nothing makes sense. And this is going to continue throughout the rest of this pile of dog poo.
Yeah, you make a good point about, and I've thought this about Rob Zombie's Halloween, which is really all my only cinematic familiarity with one Robert Q. Zombie. And I found the problem in those films too is like you don't know how to write characters. Like, I know some people would say, oh, it's making a commentary on how there's capacity for good and evil in all people, which fine. But I think that's kind of lazy because he'll just have people in 1 second be shining exemplars of morality, and the next minute they're like sexually abusing someone, you know? And it's like this, they're all over the place. Nobody is actually that way, right? Nobody is so over the top polar extremes. And I think you're right. It's the same way with these characters, and yeah, it ends up being a big old kind of joke. But it just doesn't. Who I don't like any. I like Spaulding's okay, but I don't like the two guys. I think the girls are pretty forgettable. I don't know really who I'm rooting for, what the motivation is. I guess the one underlying critique here might be there's a social or maybe even cultural, like urban versus rural thing. I think that seems to be the crux of like, oh, you city dwellers think us country folks are so backwards and stuff like that. But then it ends up being a joke. So it's like not a serious critique of socioeconomic, tensions or anything like that. I mean, that's a legitimate critique. There's plenty of movies that deal with that quite seriously, even horror films that deal with that. But here it's just fainted at, and then nothing comes of it. So I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, I'm just kind of like, again, I just can't get out of my head that I think he made it up on the spot to pitch the idea, and I think he was making it up as he was going along, like not only writing it. I don't know if he actually had a script. I think he was making it up as they were filming it. Like, I think that's what was happening. I don't know. Because it's so hollow and empty. None of it makes sense in a larger framework. It's just like, well, I need something scary to happen, so he'll just get mad. But then it's a joke. So I don't know. It's just, and it's not like you said, there's no tension here because who gives a shit? He could have hauled off and killed those two guys, and the film could have ended right then. I would have been like, good. Good. It should have just been that. It should have been Captain Spaulding killing any random person who comes into his gas station. I want to come back to this though, but I thought about an infinitely better ending to this film. Maybe I should save it for the end.
Save it for the end. Yep.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, if these assholes are writing books, if they have any sort of royalties or like advances on that contract, their book publisher is keeping close tabs on them. So I think I have an idea for how this should have ended. I will remind me at the end to posit my alternate ending to House of 1,000 Corpses. Okay.
I also have an alternate ending. I guarantee it's going to be vastly different from yours.
We should compare. We should compare. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So this scene then leads us into them going on the ride of Captain Spaulding. So Captain Spaulding takes them through a ride, and this is when we start to really see the Tomette and Jerryette characters get fleshed out, and they're unlikable douchebags. So again, we have two male unlikable douchebags, and we have two female unlikable douchebags. And Captain Spaulding. And we like Captain Spaulding. What the fuck is going on in this film? Anyway, they go through the ride, and they keep asking Captain Spaulding about this, Dr. Satan, which clever name. A super fucking impressive name there, Robert. You're killing it, buddy. But there's a tree where Dr. Satan was hung, and how do we get to the Dr. Satan tree? And so Captain Spaulding gets fed up, says, here's your goddamn map, and here, take your fried chicken, which, again, Sid Haig is great. Sid Haig is awesome. I like him. And they drive off into the night, and that ends our scene. What are your thoughts on that one?
I totally forgot about the roller coaster, whatever the hell that was, that thing. What is going on? What is the marketing for this business? It's a gas station, fried chicken emporium, oddity collection, and like sideshow ride. What is going on? And then what? So I don't know if it's later. It must be. Where Sid Haig has been running this, Captain Spaulding has been running this establishment for, what did we say? It was 7 years or something like that.
Yes. Excellent point. I actually forgot to talk about that. They actually asked Captain Spaulding how long he has been running this, and he feigns that he has no idea, right? And so he keeps giving all these country answers like, "Oh gosh, I don't rightly know." Okay, now Tom and/or Jerry points out he has a John Wayne tattoo on his arm, right? And he then says he's been running it since Wayne won the Oscar. The movie is set in 1977. Morris, would you like to explain how we figured out how long Captain Spaulding has been running this business?
Well, because he says, I've been running it, like my daddy ran it before me, and I took over right around when the Duke won the Oscar or something like that, right? And so we just looked it up on, I looked it up on Wikipedia, or maybe I just Googled it. I don't really remember, but if I do, I'll do it right now. You hear Jimmy Buffett died? Did you hear about that?
He wasted away in Margaritaville too long.
Oh, God.
Got him!
John Wayne Oscar. Best Actor 1970. So, yeah, I think it's been 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah.
For a guy that has a tattoo of the man on his arm.
So,
here's a question for you, Morris. When did the Cubs win the World Series last?
2016.
Guess what was 7 years ago?
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Do you have a tattoo of the Cubs on your body?
No, I don't. That's dumb.
Yeah, but you're a fan of the Cubs, and you know when they won the highest award possible was.
Yeah, well, I remember, like, it was the same time I started at my current employer, which I can't legally disclose the name of. It rhymes with Colorado State University. But
clever.
Yeah, but like, if somebody was like, "Oh, when did you start?" It would be like, "Well, shucks, I think it was when the Cubs won the World Series." I'd be like, "No, it was the year 2016, sweetie." Thank you. My wife just forgot I was in the room I was sitting in. Yeah, it says here, IMDb. He was a nominee in 1950 for Sands of Iwo Jima, Best Actor in Leading Role. That's nominee. 1961 nominee, Oscar Best Picture, The Alamo. But 1970 winner, Best Actor in Leading Role for True Grit. So it's, yeah, it makes no sense.
7 years.
Yeah, I just, again, the time setting for one, I don't know when it becomes abundantly clear that it's in Texas. Like that, that's pretty buried as a geographical detail. And two, the temporal setting. I mean, this just doesn't even look like 1977. And I know Rob Zombie was alive in 1977. I think he has very vivid memories of that particular year. I think that's when the Carney riot happened, that he was present in that with his Carney parents. Not making that up, by the way. That's an actual biographical detail of Rob Zombie. But it's confusing. I don't know when or where we are. And so, like, you're talking about the man. So is he just conflating, like, things from the late 60s, early 70s with mid to late 70s?
That's a really good question. For those of listeners out there, Rob Zombie was born in 1965, so he would definitely remember the 70s. But yeah, like this whole film is all over the goddamn place. It's all over the place, exactly like you said. Timeline-wise, like he can't nail down a goddamn timeline. I'm convinced he had Sid Haig give that line and then didn't tell him, I'm going to make you look like a jackass later by putting a fucking date card up over the film. Like 1977. So Captain Spaulding, a man who can clearly get away with murder, doesn't know 7 years ago. Okay.
I don't know. I have no explanation for that whatsoever. I really don't. Again, I just think I think this movie was meant for an audience of one. It's Rob Zombie, and he was just making it to entertain himself. I mean, he even somehow figured out a way to work in his weird Munsters shit. Like they're watching the Munsters at some point. And we like randomly discovered, it's like, wait, is the name of the Munsters car Dragula? Because it's Dragula, yeah. But it's a drag race. And we looked it up and it was like, yep, that's exactly what it was.
Sure is.
And I was like, motherfucker.
Just remember, kids, make sure you dig through those ditches and burn through those witches. God, fucking Carney right asshole.
What does that fucker have to do with the Munsters? Digging through ditches and burning through witches. My Dragula.
I hate him so much.
I think in the music video they are in the Dragula, aren't they? See, now I have to revisit all this shit because I'm just like, Rob Zombie, you're a mess, my friend.
God, fucking Carney. Ugh.
Okay, what's the next scene? I'm gonna start talking about pipes if we don't progress forward.
Good point.